with that, I guess we forgot to turn the recording on, so we are recording now. So, like I say, I want to welcome everybody to today's meeting. We've got a lot of motions and stuff to go through. As we go through the information, so let's go to the next slide, please. So the agenda for today that we're looking at is a brief welcome. We acknowledge we've got our memorial scroll here that is recognizing those that have passed, that have been part of the OASA. We'll touch on what happened this past year, go through a variety of individual and team awards and some honorary awards, and that'll finish the ceremonial section, and then we'll move into our business section and go through a variety of the reports and elections and amendments and touch on plans for 2022. Next slide there. So looking at what happened in 2021, now I guess first of all, I want to recognize that we've got a number of guests that are with us from different organizations and a variety from our different affiliated teams. So thank you and welcome everybody for joining us today in this meeting. So 2021 was our second COVID year in a row, although we didn't have as bad a year as we did in 2020. We were able to actually get things going, but we kicked things off late in the summer and only got half of the time frame in to pull off all of our tournaments and events. But thanks to everybody that was involved, we were able to get all of our age groups, to have the different events happening from the eliminations and qualifiers and the provincials in each of the age groups. And while there weren't any Canadians, the Eastern Canadians were initially off, but then they were back on again, and we were able to send a number of teams out east, and we did very well there, bringing home 7 medals out of the 12 that were up for grabs, and four male age groups that were participating out there. And certainly the ministry funding that we did receive helped us, all of us that were involved in all of the associations. The OASA got some funding that we in turn were able to pass on through to the different teams and associations through offering some new balls, as well as subsidizing affiliation fees for most of our age groups this year. So we're certainly glad that we were able to do that to help carry on and offset some expenses for everybody during this course of this year. We'll go next to a brief highlight or chart that has, the gold medal winners for each of our teams and age groups that took place during the year. I'm not going to run through each of the ones that are there, but certainly just recognizing that everybody, that did participate, we were glad we had the number of teams that we did, and congratulations to all those teams, which were all recognized and awarded at the tournament at their individual event. Next. When it comes to the Softball Canada, there were 3 male national teams. Proud to say that we've got 6 athletes on the under 23 junior men's national team from Ontario, and they'll be participating in the Pan Am Games Championship in the spring of 2022. Not sure if they've figured out the location for that, but certainly congratulations to those 6 individuals that are listed on there and showing there. For purposes of getting through everything, I'm not going to read every name and every line for each of the slides. So in case you're wondering on that, I'll just be summarizing each of the slides as we go through for the stuff. On the senior men's team, there are 13 individuals from Ontario that are in the 44-man athlete pool, and Tyler Pauli is going to be one individual from Ontario that will be participating in the senior men's National Pan Am Games in February in Argentina. And the under 18 team, Had some events and tryouts and activities during 2021. The final team has not been selected as yet, but they're looking to do that over the course of the next few months in anticipation of some events happening in 2022. And we're expecting, obviously, that they will have a good representation from Ontario with us at those games as well. Moving into the next slide, some brief updates. The Softball Canada AGM happened a couple of weeks ago. As hopefully everybody's aware, the special AGM that happened in April looked at moving the age groups up and in turn some of the pitching distances and base distances. But the main difference was that we're moving from U8 to U9 and 10 to 11, et cetera, all the way up. U19 goes to U20, but U23 just stays still at U23. There'll be a new rule book coming out this year. The board and of directors and the president information is there, and something that just came out officially, I guess, over the last couple of days. The CEO for Softball Canada, Hugh Mishner, is going to be retiring in May after 25 years of service with the organization. So everybody is wishing him the best, obviously, and they're going to be following up for the hiring, replacing of him over the course of the next few months. As far as the rules that were updated and changed during the AGM, these are the ones that directly affect us, I guess. One of the big ones was the pitching rule. There used to be the two sets of rules for under 16 and over 16. What's happening going forward now is that there's only going to be one pitching rule, so there will be consistent pitching mechanics involved from every age group moving up, basically, following the WBSC, which is basically 1 foot on the rubber to start with. So that will allow some consistency, for every age group for pitchers developing from from each age group as they're migrating up. The old U14 rule that, would have come in to be U15, where there was a max of 4 innings pitched and minimum of 2 innings participation required at the Canadian Championships, is being removed. That was voted out. In Ontario, we didn't follow that within our OASA tournaments and events previously as well. So that just falls in line with what we're doing there. U17 and below pitchers will be required to wear face masks. The previous Softball Canada rule was U12 and below. OASA, ours was U16 last year, so it moves up 1 year, similar to all the other age changes that are happening moving up. The next one is metal spikes will be allowed from U15 and up at Softball Canada events. So this is a new thing that will be available for athletes and helping there. And the rules regarding NCCP coaching certification requirements, there were some special notations that were in the previous rule book related to 2020 and stuff when we first started looking at stuff within COVID. That portion was taken out and reverting back to what the old rules are, basically, where at Canadian Championships, the head coach and in all age groups will need to be Comp Intro certified, and all assistant coaches will need to be Comp Intro trained. So from an OASA standpoint, we'll be looking at what our requirements were, and we'll be getting that shared with everybody as well as we move forward over the course of the next week or two. Moving into the individual athlete awards, the first set of awards that we're going to recognize here have all been handed out at the either elimination or the provincial tournaments for both the pitching and the MVP awards. So not going to go through and name all the individual players. They did receive their recognition at the individual tournaments, but for record purposes, wanted to capture that, within our presentation here and within the AGM booklet that everybody received as well. So congratulations to all of those individuals for their performance during each of those tournaments. The next set of awards. We're recognizing the no-hitters that happened within OASA events this year. And while there may very well have been some combined no-hitters or 3 or 4 inning no-hitters, from an OASA standpoint, we're recognizing things where it's a minimum of 5 innings, where we're recording it in our book and stuff and that and sharing it here. So congratulations to these 4 individuals who had no-hitters of 5 innings or more, you know, within our OASA limbs or provincials. Next. Moving into our scholarship awards, each year the OASA hands out usually 2 or 3 recognition awards that combine both athletics and education and community service participation. So this year we're pleased to announce that we have 3 individuals that we're recognizing. The first of those is Robbie Barker, played with the 2021 U19 Napanee Express. Some brief bullet points about Robbie there. He's also one of our Team Ontario 2022, moved from 2021 to 2022 as the tournament got shifted. So we're adjusting that as we go, but certainly the U19 Napanee Express team had great success in both the eliminations and the provincials, as well as the Eastern Canadians, and Robbie was a big part of some of that. So congratulations, Robbie, on that. Next winner is Ty Foster from the Jordan Jays, and Ty has, you know, from the information that we've got here, got some very, very high marks in various courses and entrance exams and teaching and stuff and that, and was involved in the Science Olympics and is a member of Mensa Canada. So congratulations, Ty, for your activities and your efforts in getting awarded one of the scholarships from the OASA. The third winner of our scholarships for this year is another individual from the Napanee Express, Tyler Franklin. Here again, another individual who has shown very strong academic as well as athletic abilities in multiple sports. So congratulations to yourself, Tyler, as well, in being recognized by the OASA for our scholarship this year. Softball Canada as well has a couple of awards for different things. There's the Claude Deschamps Award, and we're proud to say that Connor Brooks was recognized by Softball Canada for that award. And here's a brief bio. Certainly Connor, you know, was another member of the Napanee Express U19 team that had all kinds of success at the Limbs and Provincials and the Eastern Canadians. So congratulations, Connor, on being recognized by Softball Canada. And they also have a second award that they hand out called the Ethel Boyce Award. And this is a repeat performance. So Robbie Barker, congratulations, recognized by Softball Canada as well and receiving that award. So we're very proud, obviously, of having multiple individuals from Ontario being recognized by Softball Canada, you know, and being able to be in the running and consideration for all of those awards. Softball Canada has one other award that we want to announce, and that is the Softball Canada Home Run Sports Coach of the Year Award. And Corey Brooks from Napanee, the U19 Express head coach, was recognized for that. And certainly brief bio that's here. You know, Corey's had a number of different championships at the Limbs and Provincials and Canadians and Eastern Canadians. He's also a member of the high performance coaching program that we have introduced this summer, and has been coaching for at least 18 years that we were able to track down. Corey might have to correct us on that, but that's the information that we have so far on that. And congratulations, Corey, for being recognized as the Coach of the Year, you know, from a Canadian standpoint in Softball Canada. The next award that we have is a Life Membership Award, and the individual that we're going to be recognizing here, she already knows that she has got it. She's a member that I'm sure will be very familiar with all of the coaches and administrators that have had anything to do with OASA for the last, 19, 20 years. Mary Myers has been a volunteer with OASA since 1980. She's been the registrar since 2005, won various awards, within the OASA and externally as well. So we certainly want to recognize that, Mary Myers, who sits on our executive, we get the honor of recognizing you and having you join our life members group within OASA. And just a word of note, I guess, on all of these awards and stuff and that, because we're doing things virtually, we are looking to have a ceremony or an awards get together in the spring, hopefully of next year, where we can gather our 2020 and 2021 award winners and bring everybody together to recognize them in person. But we're still waiting on that, working through the details, but stay tuned for that, where we can recognize everybody in person, hopefully in the spring. The next category of induction that we're looking at is OASA created a virtual Hall of Fame in 2016. And we have players and coaches and builders and teams that are the different categories that people can qualify for. This year's award winners is a team, and it's the Team Ontario team from 2001. A few bullet points about them on the side there. They were the only team that we're aware of that has received an Ontario Sports Award as the team of the year, the only softball team that we're aware. We're not sure if there's any other teams per se, but they did go through, the Canada Summer Games undefeated. 5 of the athletes that were on the team there did receive OASA scholarships. Both coaches and the manager are in the OASA Hall of Fame. And one of those individual players actually went on to become an NHL referee. So this information is contained a little bit more detail and stuff in that in the AGM booklet that was sent out to everybody, but we want to recognize them as a Hall of Fame inductee for the OASA. The next award and the description for the Fever Award, it's in honor of the memory of Frank Fever, who was the OASA secretary from 1943 to 1956. Frank's dedication, service, and devotion played a major role in the expansion and development of the game of softball. The award is presented to a player, official, or officer of any league or association who, in the opinion of the Fever Awards Committee, has made an outstanding contribution to the game of softball. And this one we always try to keep as a surprise. So hopefully this is a surprise to the individual who's receiving this year. It's none other than George Ryder, a past president of the OASA, who's also been a Team Ontario coach, a Team Canada coach, served on the executive for many, many years, received the Coaches Award, the President's Merit Award. He was quite the player in his heyday as well, from all accounts that we have, and certainly is one that is still giving back to players by helping out and coaching, pitching coaching for the information on pitching instruction for younger teams and younger ball players and that. So congratulations, George Ryder. I'm thinking this is going to be a surprise for you, and hopefully it was, but certainly a well-deserved one from our OASA standpoint, and congratulations on receiving the FR Fever Award from the OASA in 2021. That wraps up the ceremonial section of the presentation and the meetings today. And so what we're looking at now is moving into the business section, where we'll go through the various motions and minutes and pass agenda items and stuff. And that the stuff that we're going to be going through now, we're using Zoom and the polling function within Zoom to do the voting. Hopefully everything works okay with that. We're assuming that it will. Everybody would have received a note from myself indicating whether you were a voting member or a non-voting member. Basically, all of the current executive and a past president and the up to 3 representatives from each affiliated center or team are eligible to vote. We've got a number of individuals that are on the call in the meeting today that are outside of that. So hopefully all the voting goes okay. If we do happen to get into a scenario where the vote is close and we need to take a step back, what we'll look at doing, because we can't, stop and step out and do the actual counts really easily. If there's a particular item that is in question as far as whether it gets passed or not, we will look at, pending that and following up with everybody after the message or after the meeting happens and confirm whether it actually was passed or not, or reached whatever threshold, because we can run some reports out of Zoom after that gives individual voting, and we will know who voted or didn't vote for the different things. So if you do have a vote in today's elections and for the motions and stuff in that, we're going to ask you to vote. If you don't have a vote and you're a guest in essence, obviously you're interested in some of the stuff that we're talking about today, but we ask you not to vote and not to abstain, just not to respond at all when the poll goes out. So as far as, it looks on here, it looks like we have 27 voting members that are on the call today and in the meeting today. So some of our votes require a 2/3 number to pass that. So that would be 18, out of those 27 for the motions. And the stuff that requires 2/3 are the amendments to the bylaws and the Constitution. The rules and other elections stuff and that only require 50% plus 1. So for those ones, it'll be 14, but like I say, it'll be 18 for the 2/3. So I'm getting confirmation from my other compatriots here in the room that those numbers sound right. So we'll go with that. If you do have comments or want to weigh in on any of the motions or the discussion that's happening, we'd ask you to use the raise hand function or the chat function to look at getting our attention, and we'll try and make sure that nobody gets bypassed. We've got a couple of people spotting, and we'll flag things down and stuff on that to make sure we get through. So with that, we'll look at moving into the first motion that we've got on our agenda for today. So within the AGM booklet that was sent out to everybody, there are the minutes from the 2020 AGM, as well as various committee chairs reports and tournament reports. So from an OASA standpoint, we're looking at Karen Mills as being the mover and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan as seconding on that. Were there any questions or anything that anybody's asking about the minutes or the reports or anything? If not, then we'll ask for the vote on this. So there'll be a poll that should come up. So hopefully you have a poll that pops up in the middle of your screen asking you that the motion is written and in its entirety be adopted by the members, either to vote in favor or opposed or abstain. And hopefully all the voting and stuff goes okay. So you're going to hit your vote and then submit it. And then in a minute or so, we'll have the results of that and be able to share that with everybody. Okay, we have all the votes in for that. So I'll ask Jonathan Baker, who's here helping run the technical side of things for us, and that to show the results of that. So we have all the votes in, and that was carried. So thank you very much, everybody, on that one. We'll move to the next motion. So this next motion is with respect to our financials. And the way our fiscal year end happens on September the 30th, and our AGM happening the last week or two of November, only gives us about 6 or 7 weeks to be able to get all of our financials together. This is something that will likely be needing to change going forward as part of the new Ontario Nonprofit Corporations Act that just came into effect the end of October, or late October. But we just haven't got the financials together, both through to our accountant and as well back to be able to share with you. If anybody is looking for a copy of our financials, once they do get completed, we'd ask that you reach back out to either myself or to Patty Nolan, our treasurer, to look at getting a copy of that. But for the purposes of today, and this is the same as what we did last year, we put a motion out that our financials are not completed as yet, but we're asking you to understand that, yeah, we are fiscally, financial, and we've got a few bucks in the bank, and we're not going anywhere. So there's, from a financial standpoint, we're comfortable as an executive that we're financially okay and able to continue on, and that there isn't anything, untoward happening with any of our funding. So we're asking you to look at approving this and voting for this. So with that, Jonathan, start the poll. Okay, got all the votes in on that, so we'll show the results of that. And that was 90% approved and 10% abstained, so that had more than the 50% plus one, so we're approved on that one. Thank you. The next portion of our executive meeting here, our AGM here, is with respect to nominations for positions, either as an officer. There are 6 officer positions and then 6 elected executive as well. What we've done here, all of the nominees have been asked to submit and confirm in writing that they're looking to stand or not stand in that. So within the scenario right here, okay, my name was put forth and I accepted the nomination, so I will accept that. And Adam Brown, who is not on the call with us today, had some family matters to take care of, has confirmed through to us that he is going to let his name stand. So Adam will be the executive vice president. So we'll have a motion after we have all of the elections to look at confirming and voting on everybody. So we'll go to the next one then, Jonathan. So the next position is our vice president position, and there are 2 vice presidents within the OASA officer group as things are set. In this case, Mike Crawford originally had indicated that he was wanting his name to stand, but within the last week or so has come back and advised that he is wanting to withdraw his name from running in that. So I'm going to ask Stephen Davis and Stephen Hole and Brad Thompson to confirm. So Stephen Davis, if you can confirm that you're still going to let your name stand. So either unmute or a thumbs up or something, Stephen. I know previously Stephen had indicated through to Karen Mills, our secretary, his desire to let his name stand for that. Stephen Hole, you let your name stand? Yeah, get a thumbs up from Stephen and his screen there. Brad Thompson, will you let your name stand? Stephen Davis's hands up. Okay, all right. I can't see everybody's screen and stuff. So Brad Thompson. Okay, so Stephen is saying that it's okay. In the chat there, Brad Thompson is looking to decline the nomination with thanks. Brad has been on the executive for a number of years and is the current past president. So that being the case, then so Stephen Davis and Stephen Hole are the two names left standing for the position of vice president. So we do not need to move forward with having a vote on that then. So congratulations to Stephen and Brad. Thanks for having your name initially proposed there, and we'll see you in a little bit, I'm sure. Going to the next slide, please. So the next slide, the nominations for secretary, Karen Mills' name was put forward, and she had acknowledged that she was willing to look at letting her name stand. And Patty Fitzgerald Nolan for the treasurer position was the only name put forward, and she'd indicated the same thing. So thank you, ladies, for continuing on in those roles. They've been doing those roles and wearing those hats for a few years now, very, very competently, and every confidence in them to continue on with that. So moving to the next position then. So for nominations for the 6 elected positions, and then so now Stephen Hole was just voted in as the vice president. So there are 7 names on the list here. So with Stephen's name coming off the slate here, that leaves 6 executive positions in this elected executive. And we have received confirmation from all of these individuals that they will let their name stand for the elected executive position. So Matt Allen, Mike Crawford, Mike Mulvey, Mary Myers, Scott Thompson, and Brad Thompson will be our 6 elected executive on our executive for this coming year. With that being the case, then we do not need to have any voting for any of our elected or officer positions. So move to the next slide, please, and thank you. So that being the case, this next motion here is looking to approve the OASA executive for the upcoming season for both the executive or officers and the executive elected as acclaimed and voted on. Moved by Stephen Davis and seconded by Patty Fitzgerald Nolan. So here again, we'll ask for a vote and confirmation from everybody on that. You can start that poll, please. Okay, we've got the results in on that, so show the results there. So 100% in favor of that. So congratulations to everybody. Welcome back in various roles and positions and that, and congratulations on a couple of new folks or in different positions at least, but still within the executive. So looking forward to another interesting year as we start to move forward and see what 2021 or 2022 brings us in a planning and execution standpoint. So going to the next slide, please. So I've covered off parts of this, I guess, with respect to the percentages for passing motions and voting and stuff. The page references that you'll see within the motions that we're having here are based on our 2021 Constitution and Bylaw Rulebook. Within the book each year, any changes that were approved at the previous AGM are highlighted in bold to identify them. And we will need to renumber things or readjust things, obviously, depending on what motions get passed and resolutions take effect immediately, unless otherwise noted within the actual motion itself. So with that, we'll move into the next slide, please, and thank you. So within our complete OASA Constitution and Bylaws book, we have in multiple places where we talk about sign or signed with reference to team certificates. We're going to look at switching that to say register or registered where appropriate. And so having Karen Mills as the mover and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan as the seconder on this. And to be able to hear a different voice, and asking the movers to just restate the rationale that's on there. So Karen, if you can unmute yourself and cover that off. And if there's any questions, please raise your hand or put it in the chat box. Yeah. So Jonathan is working down to let Karen speak.
Okay.
Karen.
The OASA no longer requires players or coaches to sign rosters or documents in person at each event. Electronic signatures are obtained when required on OASA documents.
So, are there any questions or comments? I say if you do have anything, raise your hand or put a comment in the chat box. I'll give each of these motions, a short period of time for anybody to raise their hand or to put a comment in saying they want to talk, and then we'll move forward with the vote. So not seeing any motion or any hands up or anything, we'll call for the vote on this. Okay, all right, we've got the votes all in on that one, so I'll show the results there. Okay, all in favor, so thank you, everybody. There, as you'll notice, there are a number of motions and stuff, and a lot of these various motions in here are more housekeeping or administrative or organizational from our standpoint. There definitely are a few rule ones that we're anticipating there'll be some discussion on, and certainly we want to get through everything as quickly as we can, where there's no requirement for any real discussion, to allow us time to have the conversations where we need to on the various other motions. So we'll go to the next one then. So motion 5, which was number 2 in the list of motions that were submitted through back in September. So here it's a revision to our Constitution and the vision portion, indicating that the OASA is recognized as the preeminent development body for male softball, in the province of Ontario. So this is slight wording difference from what exists today, where it references us as being a preeminent development body for softball in Canada. This is focusing more on just within males within Ontario. Mover of Scott Thompson and seconded by Patty Fitzgerald Nolan. Scott, you want to read the rationale, please?
Yep, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
So the rationale here is this represents a new reality that we face.
So focusing, primarily on the male side within Ontario is where OASA focuses, our development efforts and stuff on that. So any questions, comments? If not, then we'll call the vote on this. I'm assuming because nobody has raised their hand or put anything in the chat box that everybody has seen the polling questions and being able to vote. So that's good, because in a couple of the trial ones that we had some success, and other times we didn't. So glad we didn't have any issues with that. So all the votes are in on that. We'll show the results on that, please. So 97%, so we're good on that one. So thank you very much, everybody. Moving to the next motion. So it's motion number 6 in our bylaws under the president responsibilities and action. So the president, we want to look at, there's a deletion here in the highlighted or the bolded strike through area. So the president may form ad hoc committees, and the chairperson of these committees must be a member of the executive, and we're deleting or the advisory council. So Mary Myers is the mover on this, and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan is the seconder on this. Mary, if you can read the rationale, please.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Advisory council members cannot be chairs of committees.
So this is a change from some stuff we had in the past. Doesn't mean the advisory council members, which are primarily a lot of our past presidents and other volunteers, they can still be members of committees, but just not chair those committees. As a point of additional clarification if needed. So any questions or comments on this? If not, then call the vote. You flipped ahead to the next slide there, Jonathan. So we're voting on motion 6, which is to do with the advisory council as opposed to, yeah, there. So I want to make sure that we're not skipping ahead on this. Yeah. Okay, we've got all the votes in on that one. And we're 100%, so that one is passed. So we'll move to our next motion, motion number 7 on our agenda for today's voting and stuff. So here, a revision to OASA's current count as far as what requires a quorum. So we're changing it to 7 voting members, including the president or executive vice president, constitutes a quorum for our meetings. Stephen Davis is the mover, and Mary Myers is seconding this. Stephen? Read the rationale there.
Unmute me.
Okay.
But unmute me. Okay, you can hear me now? Great. Okay. Still represents a majority of the 12 elected executive.
So, previously we had it at 8 of our elected positions needed to be there. Basically, we're bringing it down so that we just have a simple majority of our executive that are required to constitute a quorum. So any questions or other comments on that? If not, then we'll call the vote. Okay, we got the tally is in on that. And all in favor, so that one is carried and passed as well. Okay. Motion number 8 is with respect to the powers and duties of the executive. And this is to do within our AGM activities and stuff and that. So we're looking to delete the section that recommends to the membership at the AGM an in-house review committee to review the books and records of the association. Stephen Davis moving this and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan seconding it. Stephen. Stephen, are you there?
Yeah, here I am now. That's good. The in-house review committee has been replaced by the review engagement conducted by a recognized accounting firm.
So up until a couple of years ago, we used to just have an internal group review our books as part of some of the changes to do with sport recognition and sport priority funding. We needed to get an actual review, an in-house review committee. You know, we needed our financials reviewed by an accounting firm to get a review engagement. So this again is, as we'll see for anybody that's involved in the Ontario Nonprofit Corporations Act, there are various different dollar thresholds that say when you need to have a review, you know, just internally or by an accountant with a review engagement, or whether you actually need to have a full audit. So within our standpoint, a review engagement is where we fit within our financials. So any questions or comments on this one? If not, we'll call the vote. Okay, we've got a tally on that. So 93%, so we're okay on that one. So thank you very much, Shirley, on that piece. The next motion then is motion number 9 that is again within our advisory council and the activities within that group to do with the previous change as well. So we're looking at both past presidents as well as honorary president and honorary vice president, basically looking at needing to cover their own expenses for some of our annual general meetings or other items that are other meetings that we're having within this process. So the mover on this is Patty Fitzgerald Nolan and seconded by Stephen Hole. So, Patty.
To reduce OASA operational expenses that are not directly related on-field or program expenses and to align with the ministry guidelines.
Apologize if there's an echo in here. We've got, you know, Patty and Jonathan and myself are in the same room, you know, about 6 or 8 feet apart from each other. So if you happen to hear some echoes from our stuff, that's the reason why. But, so with this, look at opening it for any questions or comments. Either raise your hand or put a note in the comment section that you want to chat. Not seeing any, we'll look at calling the vote on that. Okay, we got the results on that. We got 83%, so still over the 2/3 percentage, 67%. So we're good on that one. So that one passes as well. The next motion, motion number 10, is within our bylaws as well regarding voting procedures. This talks to when there are multiple candidates for position, each candidate or a candidate's designate is the new addition, is allowed a maximum of 1 minute to speak to delegates. Karen Mills as the mover and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan seconding this. Karen, if you read the rationale there, please.
This will provide background information about the candidate for the delegates to make a more informed decision.
So we didn't have any multiple candidate scenarios last year or this year, but certainly I know in the past we've had cases where there have been multiple individuals up for a position, and this is just allowing either the individual candidate or somebody that they designate to be able to speak a little bit about them. So any questions or comments on this one from anybody? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Okay, we got the results on that one. So, all in favor, so that one is carried. Okay, our next motion, is motion number 11. We did have an OASA executive meeting within the last week or 10 days, and the original motion that was presented is the one that is in black, bold, that's on here. And what you're seeing here in red that has been added to that is what the OASA executive is indicating would be a friendly amendment to that. Now, in order to save going through multiple votes and ballots and whatever, and I know may not be 100%, according to all of the voting rules, but I'm thinking that rather than go through and vote on the original one or get that put on the floor and then have discussions and whatever, that we look at getting this moved and seconded. Then if there are any questions or whatever, just look at voting on the friendly amended final version of this, that where it includes the distribution of ballots for voting at the AGM to current executive members, a past president's rep, a life member's rep, and the affiliated centers votes. So with that, I'm gonna ask Patty to move it and Stephen to second it, read the rationale, then open this up if there are any questions or comments, and then we'll look at voting on the amended, friendly amendment, unless there's some other commentary from anybody that wants to look at having it differently.
Only elected executive members, immediate past president for 1 year, or one past president representative, one life member representative, plus affiliated centers delegates are entitled to vote at the AGM.
So are there any questions or comments in that from anybody? Previously, all of our life members, all of our past presidents, all of our advisory council members, all were given a vote at our AGM. And part of this, this change in the way we're doing things is restricting the number of votes by those different categories basically to one voice or one vote for the past presidents, and one for the life members. So we could still benefit from them contributing and being party to our moves, our motions and adjustments and amendments and stuff and that, and still contributing, because certainly their input into situations, you know, given the experiences that they've had, can only help and assist, you know, the current executive in making decisions going forward. So I'll open it up if anybody wants to add any other comments or discussion on that, and we'll see if there's any questions or comments. So either raising your hand or putting a comment in the chat box that you want to add a comment or something, for anybody that wants to. Okay, seeing no raised hands or comments in the chat box, we're going to look at, you know, voting on this whole, you know, friendly amended version of this that has been presented. So it'll be one vote for the full motion as it's written here, and the stuff that is in red will become bold and black, the same as the other changes that we make moving forward. So Jonathan, call the vote on this, please, and thank you. Okay, got the tally on that. Okay, so we had 94% in favor, so that carries as it is. Okay, so the friendly amendment version will be the one that will show up in our Constitution and Bylaws book moving forward. So the next motion, number 12, we're looking at in the business section of our bylaws, a deletion. Here again, this is just another place within our book that called for us to make a motion during the AGM to appoint the in-house review committee. We're looking to delete that. Patty Fitzgerald Nolan moving that, and Stephen Davis seconding it. So Patty, I'll ask you to read the rationale.
In-house review committee has been replaced with the review engagement by an accountant.
So any questions, comments on that one? This is just a second place in our paperwork, in our bylaws that references the same points as we did previously. Seeing no hands raised or comments there, we'll call for the vote on this one. Okay, get the tally on this. Okay, 96% in favor. That one is carried as well. Motion number 13. This is to do within our bylaws regarding the various committees that we have. Basically, what we're looking at here is deleting the individual committee, you know, the Fever Award, the Scholarship Award, the Life Membership, and the Hall of Fame committees as individual standing committees that are there. But we're not deleting these. We're just rolling them all up under one awards committee, as it's indicated in point E there. Awards determine the awards and protocols and parameters for those awards, criteria for winning those awards, and identify the recipients of the awards. So Mary Myers is the mover on this one and seconded by Mike Crawford. Mary, if you could read the rationale there, please. Hopefully you're unmuted, Mary.
To aggregate all awards under one chair who will oversee them, no awards are being eliminated in the process.
So just from more from an administrative and oversight standpoint, we're rolling it up under one awards committee overall, but we're still going to have all those individual awards being handed out each year, so or recognize within the different individual categories. Any questions, comments on that? Not seeing any raised hands or comments. We'll call for the vote on that. Okay, we got the tally on that. Okay, everybody in favor? That one's carried then. Motion 14 is another one of our bylaws. This is the last of the bylaws that requires the 2/3 vote to carry. This is just an update, basically a housekeeping issue that we're looking at. Motion was passed to approve MNP to provide a review engagement report to OASA for our financials for this past year, which, you know, we're in the process, the paperwork's going to them to do our financials, you know, as we speak, kind of thing. So mover is Patty Fitzgerald Nolan and seconded by Matt Allen. Patty? Rationale.
To reflect the switch from Grant Thornton to M&P.
Thornton, but we switched away from them to go to MMP. So any questions or comments or anything on that? Not anticipating any. With that, I'll call the vote on this one. Okay, we got the tally on that one. Okay, all in favor? Okay, carried as well. Okay. Okay, so these next motions moving forward then are operating rules or other administrative things. So for any of these next ones moving forward from motion 15 forward, we only need 50% plus one approval to get them passed. Here again, a number of these are going to be just administrative and housekeeping, but there are a few that I'm expecting we'll have a little bit of conversation on. So when we get to those, we'll give those their due time and audience on that. So this next one, motion 15, all operating rules, a revision to revise all age groups throughout our book to reflect the 2022 age groups as approved by Softball Canada. So moving U8 to 9, 10 to 11, 12 to 13, you know, through to U19 going to U20. And here again, so we've got Karen Mills as the mover and Stephen Hole as the seconder on this. So with that, I'll ask Karen to read the rationale.
to reflect the revised age groups effective 2022 as set out by Softball Canada.
Okay, so not expecting any questions or comments on this. This was the special AGM that happened in April. It was voted across Canada. So OASA, we're looking to follow those same age groups moving forward within our competitions as well. So our teams can compete at the various regional and national championships with that. So any comments or questions on that? Not seeing any. We'll call the vote on that. Okay, we'll get the tally on that. Okay, so one is carried as well. Motion number 16. We're looking at operating rule 3.3 for categories. This is to do with our master side. So it's more just a rewording of the same stuff that is in there. If enough teams in the Masters classification participate, a Masters A and Masters B category will be created. Masters B will follow all current Masters rules except no current ISC players will be permitted. Scott Thompson as a mover and Mike Crawford as a second. Scott, don't take too long.
The rationale here is housekeeping.
Yeah. So this is just tidying up the presentation of it. So there's no change to the intent or anything on how that is. So any questions or comments from anybody on that? Okay, none. Call the vote on that. Okay, we got the tally on that one. So all in favor, so that one is carried. Motion number 17. This is with respect to our qualifiers, which are the U13 now and U11s. We're looking at deleting what we had in there previously, where it was stating that in order for us to put on a qualifier tournament, will only be held if there are at least 12 teams in a classification. So we're looking to delete that completely. The mover is Mary Myers and the seconder is Stephen Davis. So Mary.
Okay, the OASA will conduct qualifier tournaments for less than 12 team classifications whenever possible.
So here, basically, we're saying, we'll run it for however many teams. We did this, the past couple of years, obviously with COVID, our number of teams and that were down, but we're certainly not wanting to deny, teams and players the opportunity to play by forcing there to have to be 12 or 12 teams, in an age group or classification in order for us to run a tournament. So any questions or comments on that one? If not, then we'll call the vote on that. Okay, got the results on that one. Everybody's in favor, so that one is carried as well. Motion number 18 is with respect to, the qualifiers, where it's indicating proof of age must be presented to the registrar prior to the start of the tournament. Previously, we were saying the convener was who we needed to show that to, but because we've changed our process. So the mover on that is Mary Myers, seconded by Stephen Hole. So Mary, rationale.
Okay, the registrar is the one who confirms all proof of age documentation.
So our process has changed, partly to do with COVID, but partly it offers some efficiencies by having everything done, online before time or ahead of time. Definitely makes for efficiencies at the tournament. So, any questions or comments on that one? Not seeing any. We'll call the vote on that. Okay, we've got the tally on that one. All in favor, so that's good. That one's carried. Motion number 19 regarding dates for filing of certificates. As stated previously, we've moved away from actual signing of team certificates and capturing that. So we're looking to delete the wording that says all players must sign in on the official team certificate at the team's first OASA tournament. Mover is Mary Myers, second is Stephen Davis. Mary?
Team certificates are no longer signed by each player and coach. They are all submitted online prior to participating.
So any questions, comments on that one? Not seeing any. I'll call the vote on that. Okay, get the tally on that one. Everybody in favor of that, so that one's carried. Motion number 20. This again, this is the second of 3 motions where we had some friendly amendments that came up during discussion at our OASA meeting a week or so ago on the original motion that was put in. So the original one that went in mentioned that we were going to look at going in OASA from U9 through U23. A player is eligible to play 1 classification higher, either in the player's affiliated center or in the next closest affiliated center if there is no affiliated team in their home center in the next higher classification. There must be sufficient roster space available to accommodate the player or players with the approval of the player's coach. The amendment that we're looking to add to that is that a center can call up players of a lower classification from 1 affiliated center only. So we'll get Karen Mills moving that, Mary seconding it. Get Karen to read the rationale, then we can have some discussion on this if there's points of clarification or whatever that are needed for anybody in this one, because I know reading it through, hopefully you've had a chance to have a look at it ahead of time, but Karen, we'll throw it to you to do the rationale.
Oh, sorry, can you get Mary to do that, please?
Okay, Mary, can you do that one then? Sorry.
This is to allow players in younger classifications to be able to play in higher classifications in their next closest affiliated center where there is no younger teams to call up from.
I'm anticipating we might have some conversation or questions or whatever around this one. So, so Jamie in the chat there saying, so only the next affiliated center to that individual is what they're allowed to call up from. So yeah, so if there's no affiliated team in their home center, then they need to go to the next closest one, the next closest affiliated center, you know, to be able to potentially bring them up. So a U14 player or U15 player, for argument's sake, you know, could be pulled up from Coburg, for argument's sake, to Oshawa's U17 or U17 team. But they couldn't pull a player from Coburg and from Springbrook and from Napanee all pulled up to Oshawa if they were the closest centers around them. You would have to only pull up a player, you know, or players if you needed more than one from one of those centers. So in the case where there's, you know, a center that has got multiple centers at a younger age group, you know, that they potentially could draw from, they can't draw from multiple ones, is what the friendly amendment that we're looking at. So does that make sense for folks, or any other questions? Okay, so Ryan, Greg indicating there, so in the chat, should that also read the players can only move to another center if there is no older age group in their center as well? Okay, maybe if we can let Ryan chat to that. So Ryan.
Yeah, so I guess my question would be that, and I'll use examples. If Tara had players in the U15, and then we also had a team in U17, and Chatsworth had a team in U17, then Chatsworth shouldn't be able to take our Tara kids because they've already got a team to move up to, rather than, like, I understand if there's the way that it's written makes sense, but should it go both ways?
Yeah, we're just trying to, you know, certainly when we were talking about this, you know, at our meetings, I mean, we're trying to anticipate scenarios, but, you know, so I guess it's a matter, you know, in one sense, we don't want to deny the opportunity for players to play up, but I see your point in saying, okay, yeah, if Tara, you know, has got players and they don't need to call up for their older team, but another center close by does need players, would they be able to call up from them?
And I wouldn't say that it has to be a hard line that it's a no, but maybe then Tara would have to release them for that weekend, kind of like an AP in hockey. Because if we got a coach of our U17 team and then Chatsworth's U17 team is trying to take our younger players, that might cause a rift, or it could be completely fine and they've agreed to it and that's cool, and then let them go.
Yeah, so within like the fourth and fifth lines of this, you know, there must be sufficient roster space available to accommodate the players with the approval of the player's coach. So in your example, then the U15 Tara coach would need to give approval for that player to play U17 in Chatsworth. Would that accomplish what you're thinking? Because that, like I say, the coach's approval, you know, is still required for a player to move to a different center, you know, or to play up a classification. So that's the, you know, the comment there from Brian. I'm assuming it's Brian Brooks. You know, the coach's approval, you know, will help us manage that and govern that. So I'm thinking that would address, you know, your question or your concern, Ryan, hopefully. Okay. Any other questions or comments on this? So similar to the previous friendly amendment one that we did, I'd like to, if there aren't any other questions or discussion to take place on this, look at calling the vote on this friendly amended version with what's in red, that would be the equivalent of, bold and black, Okay, so we're, because this is a friendly amendment and hadn't given Karen all the heads up on this and that, so we're going to look at having Patty Fitzgerald Nolan be the mover and Mary be the seconder for this as well. Then, so we'll just make an adjustment on that. Any other comments that anybody has or wants to add anything? If not, I'd like to call the vote on the friendly amended version of this that includes the red. So I'll give you the second one, Jonathan, the polling questions there. Okay. I closed mine. Okay, we've got a tally on that. Okay, so we've got 83% in favor, so we just needed 50 plus 1 on that. So, okay. Okay, so that one carried then. So that one, if we do have questions as we're going through registering or throughout the season, if you're needing call-ups and that, certainly we'll discuss that, and obviously wanting to have as many opportunities for players to be able to play up in the next age group, where it's going to help a team be fielded and participate. So moving to the next one then, motion number 21. Here again, this is the third of our 3 ones that have some friendly amendments in red that are highlighted there. The original motion that was submitted, and this one I'm anticipating some discussion, so feel free to raise your hand, or put a comment in the chat box that you want to speak to it, because this is certainly something that is stepping a little bit farther outside of what we traditionally have done with releases, and raising that, or considering raising that to the U23 level. So the revised motion as written there talks about changing, instead of just it being applicable to the minor division, we're saying the minor division to U23, but the friendly amendment that we were looking to have added was that this would not become effective until 2023. And the thought process there is with the age changes, and I'll let Mike, Mike Mulvey be the mover and Stephen Hole second. Mike, if you want to read the rationale there, please, and thank you.
Yeah, the OASA committee is growing the game of softball, and changing the residency rule, including U23, will encourage centers to develop their own minor systems and discourage practice of players moving from team to team at the expense of other communities. For example, 2018, there were 15 U19 teams. In 2021, there were 5 U23 teams. And then the friendly amendment is the OASA will take 2022 to gather, analyze data from our U20 and U23 teams to inform us as to how we should handle the residency in these divisions.
So see, there's a question there in the chat from Jamie asking, would the findings of the OASA need to be voted on? So if we were to pass this friendly amendment as it exists right now, we would do our data gathering and analysis by consulting with all the teams and players within the U20 and U23 and all the affiliated centers and stuff. And then certainly, at our next AGM, we could look at changing any of this information that we've got here and potentially, taking out, this residency rule up to U23, if in fact the results of the data and the discussions that we had told us that, okay, this isn't going to work for U23. And we just need to leave it, for the minor division, which will go up to U20, is going to be considered still minor moving forward. So yes, my answer to Jamie's, would the findings need to be voted on? They would be eligible to come up for discussion. So share that with all of the U20 and U23 teams and coaches and centers and that, so that going forward, we plan as best we can for how residency or teams or affiliations or whatever, in the U20 and U23 are going to look going down the road. Because I guess the bottom line is we're wanting to provide as many opportunities for players to play, as possible, and not want to have, the scenario here where, yeah, we've got, 15 teams, and then a few years later, we'll only have 5 teams, of players, in that same age group, that are still with us. So creating the opportunity for that. So a question from Tyson there. What data do you plan to find if you don't change the rule in 2022? So in 2022, if we don't change the rule, then, we'll carry on the residency rule and stuff will still only apply to up to U20, our minor divisions. The U23 would still be fair game to anybody to move anywhere and sign with any team, without having to get releases or whatever. But we would be looking to ask the questions of teams and players and centers. Okay, how can we best, plan for moving forward to get the maximum number of teams and representation, in the East and West and Central and North and South and wherever, to make sure that we had as many teams involved and continuing on. Don't know exactly what the questions and what data there is, but part of it would be, do you plan on playing, after U20, and if so, where do you think you would be wanting to go or whatever? And, would you want to have free reign to go wherever you want, without having to get a release, or some of the, the top of mind types of questions, and we'd ideally, getting people sitting in a room together talking about some of this stuff might be a better way to do it. But on the other hand, we may not be able to gather everybody, all in the same room at the same time. So it may very well be, some Zoom meetings like this, or some surveys, or, that we need to send out to all the teams and all the players to try to get a sense of, okay, what type of questions do you have, and what are your thoughts and plans moving forward from a player perspective, from a coach perspective, from a center perspective, and what do we want to be able to do moving forward. So we don't know exactly what that data would be, but that's the premise behind it, I guess. So hopefully that addresses and answers some, and we're not sure if this is the right answer or not. It was proposed and put out there, to be able to get input and discussion, taking place, with all the centers and teams and stuff. So any other comments or questions? My phone was buzzing, so I wasn't something I needed to address or whatever, so that's fine. So Brian Brooks.
Thanks, President Dave Northern. Can you hear me correctly?
Yes, we can hear you.
I just have some questions, and they're not to be answered today, but maybe for people's consideration prior to passing this. Is there's a number of programs that we have in the OASA: high performance coaching, high performance pitching, You know, there's the junior national teams, the senior national teams, and there's an emphasis on trying to get our athletes to a high performance program. And I think that's best served in the U20 to 23 age groups. My concern with undertaking something like this is encouraging players to go back to their home centers. I'm just one coach. I just happened to be in the year that was quoted earlier of 2018. I would have 5 players that would have interest in still playing the game, not because they don't love the game, but because of university, school, working, they're relocated. So my difficulty with this is, how are we going to enforce this? And is this being driven by the OASA, or is this being driven by the desire of players? So I just ask people to consider that prior to voting this.
Yeah, no, valid points for sure. And yeah, everybody knows that, yeah, priorities change, at every age group as people move up. And certainly when you're getting into the U20, U23, there's school, there's life, there's work, there's, friends, there's social sides of things, there's other activities, whatever, what are happening. So there's certainly priorities may very well change, and that could be driving, a portion or a number of the reduction in the number of teams, plus as well, even the financial side of things. Okay. What does it take to put a team on the field, at U20 or U23 versus a U15 or U17 or a younger age group? So there's certainly very different, aspects that all need to get considered, as we're going through the scenario here. So like I say, we don't have all the answers. If this motion gets passed, basically it means that in 2022 we'll carry on, with the residency rule only applying to U20 and below. We'll do our data gathering, and we'll come back to everybody, with that data, I would assume, late during the year in 2022, ahead of us trying to decide anything for 2023. So I'm thinking that would be, likely a September, October 2022, after everybody finishes their 2022 season, that we go through, and then we decide what we would look at doing for 2023. So another question from OAS, from Ryan Gregg here: would the OASA be able to create a questionnaire and send out to U19 from 2019 and ask if they are still playing, where, why, or if they're not, why not? Would they come back? Was freedom to move help or hurt? Yeah, one of the challenges that we have, is that we don't necessarily have email contact information for all of those players from 2018. We could certainly go back to all the coaches that we had and ask them, and we can put stuff out on social media, to gather data. We would use a number of channels to try to gather data, from that. Certainly the retention rate from age group to age group is something that, going forward, we want to be better at capturing that information. But the last couple of years, we've gotten better in capturing the data. Certainly, that's the angle we would take. The additional comment there from Ryan: ask the players themselves, not people like us. Send to the centers and encourage effort to get it out. Make it easy so that, or they won't do it. Valid points. As all of us on this call here, in this meeting here, we realize that, social media, whether that's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or whatever, is the way that our younger athletes communicate. Certainly we'd leverage that, as best we can to get the message out and get that stuff circulated, through to everybody. And we'd gather that information, at an individual level, something so that we, in essence, we couldn't have John Mather's, son Brian, responding 12 times and, flooding the ballot box or whatever and that. So we do something along those lines. So another comment from Brent: forcing players to a home center when other provinces consign players from another province is a major disadvantage to consider. fair enough. Yeah, and like I say, this is where, we're floating this out there, we're putting it on the table, and, if it gets adopted, it gets adopted. If it gets voted down, then, I'm still assuming we're gonna go out and ask everybody, how best we move forward, and doing that data gathering and analysis, portion of it. So. Any other comments or questions from anybody? Good discussion, good valid stuff. I know it makes it a little trickier to do it, through Zoom and chat function and stuff and that versus being all in the same room doing it. But glad everybody was able to chime in that wanted to, and certainly so. If there are no other points of discussion for this particular topic, I'm going to ask that we call the vote on the friendly amendment and go from there. And they say it's not going to cast it in stone that it can't be changed going forward. So that's something to keep in mind. I'm not trying to sway you yes or no, but it's not the end of the world if we go one way versus another way. So with that, I will call a vote on the friendly amended version. That sounds about right. Okay, we'll get the results of that vote then. Okay, so that was voted down then. So we'll stay status quo for 2022, and we'll carry on. Like I say, we'll still look at doing the data gathering and the analysis side of things, because certainly we want to do what's best and what we need to do from a moving forward focus and stuff in that. So motion number 22 is tied into this motion. So basically, this motion was put forward by Owen Sound, Fast Pitch. So Jamie Simpson, I'll ask you to read the motion and the rationale and stuff, please and thank you. Or whatever you want to do with this.
Can you hear me, Dave?
Yeah.
So given the last motion that took place, we will be withdrawing our motion.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. Okay. So motion 22 is withdrawn by Owen Sound and Jamie Simpson. Okay. Motion number 23. We're looking at a revision regarding the minor division. So the motion is that no player may be registered on another team certificate unless properly released by the player's former team. A player requires a release from the affiliated home center and the next closest center to the home center. In the case that the home center is not an affiliated center, it will be the two closest affiliated centers to the player's residence in order to be able to register with any other center in the province. The mover on this one is Stephen Hole, and the seconder is Stephen Davis. Stephen, the rationale there, please.
The OSA is committed to growing the game of softball as stated in the objectives of the OSA, page 45, Article 2D, to encourage communities to develop their own minor system and to discourage the practice of players moving from team to team at the expense of other communities.
So currently, our release rules are that you need one release and then you can move, anywhere within the province. So the main difference on this one is looking at requiring two releases. So your home center and the one closest to that, or the two closest centers. So this is another one where, anticipating there could be or might be some discussion on it. So I'll let folks either comment in the chat or raise their hand or let us know if they want to have any discussion on it. Okay. Not seeing, is there anybody with their hand raised? I can't see everybody's stuff in that, so I'm asking Patty and Jonathan if they see there's nothing in the chat. Anybody indicating they're looking for clarification or question or comment or whatever. So if not, then we'll look at calling a vote on this one then. For those of you that have been around for a few years, you may very well, say this is deja vu all over again, because in the past we've gone from one release to every release back to one release, and now this one is proposing two. So got a question in the chat box here. If there is a dispute, is OASA the mediator? So yes, it comes down to if a player is looking for a release or a question or wanting to move somewhere, then that gets escalated through to us at the OASA as a special request or special permission, that gets escalated through to us as the OASA, to myself as the president, and then our residency committee, gets involved, and then we discuss the pros and cons and discuss with the different parties. So yeah, that's the process there. So have the results of this one. So this one is showing 52% in favor and 48% opposed. I'm gonna exercise some discretion here as president on this, because this vote is so close. Even though just 50% plus one is entitled to be able to pass something, just in order to confirm who voted or didn't vote or whatever, I'm going to defer the final result on this. We'll come back to everybody with what the final tally was on this. As it sits right now, it looks like the majority ruled in favor of it, but literally it's a matter probably of one or two votes swaying at one way or the other. So I'm going to exercise some executive criteria there to do that. So we'll get back to you within the next couple of days, because we can run a report after the fact within Zoom, exactly who voted for or against, and then we can circle back with everybody when we look at getting the summary of this information together and get that back out to everybody. So I trust everybody will be okay with that, and we'll, like I say, we'll defer the result on that and come back to everybody, because it was 52 to 48. Okay, so all right, moving on. motion number 24. So this is something that we did actually have occur at one of our tournament games this year where, you know, a coach got ejected and then the team lost by default because there wasn't another coach that was there, but that wasn't the way things were written or whatever within our rules. And so we're just wanting to clarify so that in the event that a coach or coaches in the minor division are not available to coach for any reason, the OASA shall allow adults to coach the team. There shall be no protest allowed from using an unregistered coach with or without a uniform in the minor division. So the mover on this, Matt Allen, and the seconder being Patty Fitzgerald Nolan. So Matt.
This is the responsibility of the OASA convener.
So the scenario that we had during our tournament this year, the umpires made the decision that that was the end of the game because their coach, they didn't have a coach, but that wasn't, you know, our intent, and we didn't have that in our rules. So we want to make sure that it's clear that the OASA is the one that's, you know, in control of making that final call if it is defaulted or not. So Ryan Gregg, major breath of fresh air on common sense. Okay. Thanks, Ryan. Even the air up north there in Tara, eh? All right. Okay, any questions or comments on this one? Okay, if not, then we'll look at calling for the vote on this one. That was not a game that Matt Allen was umpiring, in case anybody was wondering. Okay, I've got the results on that one. Everybody is in favor of that, so good. That one is carried. Hopefully, most of the rest of these will move fairly quickly. I know we're pushing up on a couple of hours here, but we'll carry forward and then keep going here. So, motion number 25. Revision and deletion within this. So all players and team officials must be registered on team forms provided to the OASA registrar prior to being allowed to play. Proof of eligibility of players, proof of age, and Masters U23 and below is required. Signatures obtained may be checked against OASA records. We're deleting that portion of it. Mover is Mary Myers, then seconded by Matt Allen. Mary?
To reflect that team certificates are no longer signed and that the registrar is the one who verifies a proof of age for players.
Any questions, comments? Not seeing any. We'll look at calling the vote on this. Okay, we got the results on that. Everybody's in favor, so that one's carried. Motion number 26, with respect to champion guidelines, an addition. Right now, within our guidelines, there's the wording of no alcoholic beverages of any kind shall be permitted within the playing area. we're adding minor team coaches observed consuming alcoholic beverages prior to their team having completed play for the day are subject to disciplinary action by the OASA. Mover is Mike Mulvey and seconded by Mike Crawford. Mike Mulvey?
Yeah, this is to reflect the OASA's zero tolerance for consumption by minor team coaches while their teams are still have games to play that day.
So, any questions, comments? We didn't include this for the adult age group ones because quite often there's a beer tent going on at the adult events, and you know it's not something that's going to be able to be enforced in the same way as within the minor side of things. So if there's no questions or comments, we'll look at calling the vote on this. Okay, we got the results on that. Okay, so 6% in favor, so that one is carried. Motion number 27. This is regarding the Eastern Canadians and Intermediates. Currently, the date to commit is August the 1st, but unfortunately, that's almost a month after the commitment date for the Eastern Canadians. So we're looking at intermediate teams having to commit to the Eastern Canadians and through us by July 1st, of each year. So mover on that, Gary Baker, and second by Mike Crawford. Gary?
The rationale is to meet the commitment date of the Eastern Canadian Softball Championship.
Any questions on that? Seeing none, we'll call the vote on that. Okay, we've got the results on that. Okay, in favor. Next motion is motion number 28 with respect to tournament convener and variety of deletions and one addition. So with respect to appointments and responsibilities at our various tournaments. So the appointment of umpires, ensuring players and officials sign in, and checking of players' ages and birth certificates are all coming out. And we're looking at, adding a section basically, specifically putting the onus and responsibility on our additional resources and conveners being engaged to as far as required to run the tournament. So Stephen Davis, mover, and seconder Mary Myers on this. Stephen?
Hold on here.
Yep.
Still can't do it.
I can hear you.
You can? Good. Okay. To reflect current practices regarding appointment of umpires, registration procedure, and who is responsible for engaging the necessary resources to convene tournaments.
So as we've changed some of our processes over the last few years, we just want to make sure that our book and processes are reflected accordingly. So any questions on this one? If not, then we'll look at calling the vote. Okay, the tally on that. Okay, all in favor, so that one's carried. Motion 29. As far as host responsibilities, for a tournament. So one of the things that we're trying to do is up the level and quality of scorekeeping and stats and results and stuff, and especially for some of our older players at U17, U20, U23, because part of that information is being requested by the Softball Canada, tryouts, camps and stuff for consideration of those athletes. So just wanting to add a section under the host responsibilities, clearly identifying that the host association is responsible for engaging qualified scorekeepers for each game. OASA may require hosts to hold a scorekeeping clinic prior to the tournament. Mover is Mary Myers and seconded by Karen Mills. Mary?
To declare who is responsible for obtaining qualified scorekeepers for OASA tournaments.
So certainly we're going to help out as wherever we can, but we want to make sure that hosts, realize that that's part of the expectations of putting on a tournament or hosting a tournament is that you line up, qualified scorekeepers. So any questions on that? Okay. Ryan, Greg, they're indicating, okay, a detailed list of expectations prior to the tournaments would be great for hosts. So Karen Mills, who's our secretary, once we get a host bid and that's accepted, there is an exchange of information as far as expectations. So, Tara, I know you've hosted a couple of events for us over the last couple of years. That would have been shared with Heather or Zettel probably, when that stuff was happening, but certainly, yeah, clear expectations on everybody's side, only makes things go better. And that's partly why we're wanting to make sure this is out there in black and white for everybody to see. Any other comments on this one? If not, we'll call for the vote. Okay, got the results on that one. Okay, all in favor is carried. Motion 30. This is a long one here, so we'll run through this, and I'm assuming there'll be a couple of questions or clarifications on this one, so expecting that. So the revision to this one is regarding pickups for players, for teams going out of province for tournaments and stuff. So a player registered on a roster who is playing up a classification is eligible to be picked up by the team with which the player qualified. The player does not count as one of the pickups for that team, provided the number of players on that team certificate is no more than 12 players or less, including the players being added, subject to approval from the OASA Residency Committee. If the player's team does not qualify for the championship, the player is eligible to be picked up by another team. A player who is picked up for a higher classification must fulfill the obligations to the team with which the player was originally registered. Stephen Hole is the mover and seconded by Mike Mulvey. Stephen?
Teams with fewer roster options often need to pick up from younger age classifications. If a player from the younger classification helps an older team to qualify for an Eastern, Western, or Canadian championship by being part of the roster for the elimination, they should not count as a pickup player if they attend the championship.
I know this is another one similar to the residency rule where we've gone back and forth. Do they count or not count? So if you've got a U15 player that plays all year long with the U15s and the U17s, for argument's sake, and your U17s, qualify to go to an Eastern or a Western or a Canadian, at various times in the past, they may have had to be a pickup, one of your 3 pickups or 2 pickups, for that older age group team. What this motion is talking about is saying that if you've got 12 players or less on your roster, those players don't count as pickups. If you've got 15 or 16 or 17 players on your roster, yeah, they would need to count in that regard. So it's a little bit tricky in there, but if there's questions, comments, clarification, that's kind of my Cole's notes version of what we're trying to get across. I know this is towards the end of the deck of all the questions and motions and whatever. So some of you may not have gotten this far in your pre-reading stuff on that, but hopefully it makes sense. Basically saying that, those younger ones that are playing up as a regular part of your team won't count as a pickup, provided you've got, a smaller roster. Okay, not seeing any comments or anybody's raised hand that I'm being advised that we have, so we'll call for the vote on that one then. Okay, we've got the tally on that one. Okay, 87%, so it's more than 50 plus 1, so that one is carried. Motion 31. I don't think we've got any long ones left, so just for those that are wondering when we're going to finish. No, so motion 31, looking at championship playdowns, which we haven't had to go this route for a number of years, but basically we're saying here the OASA president appoints a playdown convener for each district or zone, who then has complete charge of all playoff games and the arrangement thereof, excluding umpire appointments, which will be coordinated through the OASA umpire liaison. Mover is Patty and the seconder is Steve.
To specify who arranges for the umpires.
So the previous version, the playdown convener arranged the umpires basically. So we're indicating that, the primary contact between ourselves and we can look at doing it, going forward. So. Any questions on this one? Okay, if not, then we'll call the Okay, we got the results on this one. Okay, all in favor, so that one's carried. Motion 32. Regarding the umpire's policy statement, a deletion here. So the terms and conditions for the umpire services are contained in an agreement between Softball Ontario and the OASA that is negotiated each year. And we're striking out and removing, please refer to the OASA website to view the current agreement. So we don't post that agreement on our website anymore. A number of years ago we did, I guess, but we don't any longer. So Patty is the mover and Karen is the seconder.
The Softball Ontario OASA umpire agreement is a confidential document that is no longer published on the OASA website.
Any questions on that one? If not, we'll call for the vote on that. Okay, the tally on that. All right, so that one is carried. Okay, motion number 33. Under the umpires, still is another point here. All umpires in championship games must hold a fast pitch registration card from Softball Ontario for the current season. Mover is Patty and seconder is Stephen Davis. Patty?
To ensure that umpires for OASA tournaments are qualified fast pitch umpires.
I know this could be a challenge as we go forward, some of the umpire numbers and things in that, but our expectation is that, we're looking for fast pitch registered umpires to be doing our championship games, at the end of the day, so that they're fully versed in all of our fast pitch rules. So, comments? Vote is there. Okay, tally on there. Okay, that one's carried. Motion 34, criteria for disciplinary action. In addition, this mirrors the one that was presented and voted on earlier, just in a different section within our rules, where we're saying that minor team coaches observed consuming alcoholic beverages prior to their team having completed play for the day are subject to disciplinary action by the OASA. Mover is Mike Mulvey and seconder is Stephen Davis. Mike?
This is to reflect the OASA zero tolerance for alcohol consumption by minor teams coaches while their team still has games to play that day.
So not anticipating any questions because we had this discussion on a previous motion. So we'll look at calling for the vote on this. Okay, the results there. Okay, all in favor? That's carried. Motion 35 regarding interorganizational affiliation. We're looking at here the OASA annually assumes membership in Softball Ontario and Softball Canada, which is affiliated with the World Baseball Softball Confederation. Mover is Mike Crawford, second Karen Mills. Mr. Crawford.
There, I'm unmuted. The rationale is to reflect the change from going from the ISF organization to the WBSC.
Okay, so this is a housekeeping kind of thing, just updating the overall world body on that. So any questions on this? Assuming so. So Vote. Okay, the tally. Okay, all in favor, carried. Motion 36. A deletion here, as many of you know, ORSA also enters teams into OASA tournaments, where they have to pay the OASA tournament fee and the associate fee. And previously they had to pay the Softball Canada fee. We're looking to delete that Softball Canada fee that we charged separately. The ORSA will be counting that and collecting that, and only one of our member associations, you know, needs to collect that fee for the Softball Canada portion. So that's the change there, is deleting and the Softball Canada fee. Mover is Mary Myers, seconded by Patty Nolan. Mary?
To reflect that we no longer charge a separate Softball Canada fee at the team level.
So, any question on that? Not anticipating any. So with that, we'll get calling the vote on that one. Okay. Tally. Okay. All in favor, so that one is carried. Motion 37 is with respect to the insurance coordinator role within OASA. An addition of one additional thing that is just more of a process type of thing than anything else, but just looking to add another task to reconcile financial reports with the OASA treasurer as required. Mover is Patty Nolan and seconder by Gary Baker.
To reflect current practices that the insurance coordinator performs.
So obviously, you know, this is just prudent financial management to make sure that we're in line and in sync with the various funds and information that we've got getting captured. So any questions, comments, anybody? If not, then we'll call the vote. Okay, we'll get the tally on that. Okay, all in favor, so that one is carried. Motion number 38. In our variation, Softball Canada variation chart at the near the back of our book regarding coaches' uniforms. I know this is, you know, a challenge at various times and what we're doing, but ideally we want everybody to look and dress and feel all the same. So for all divisions, coaches appearing on the field must be dressed in coordinating apparel in accordance with the color code of the team. Failure to comply will result in the coach not being allowed on the field. Note, see the Softball Canada special operating rules for uniform requirements at Canadian Championships. Mover Stephen Davis, seconded by Mary Myers. Stephen?
To have coaches uniformly dressed in team colors.
So we're not saying the coaches have to be dressed in uniform the same as the players, you know, but ideally, you know, golf shirts and, you know, whether it's shorts or long pants or, you know, track pants or whatever, ideally we want, any of the coaches that are on the field coaching at first and third, looking, similar and consistent colors with the team. So any questions? Matt Allen, who will be enforcing this at tournaments? So this is going to fall on the convener, for our tournaments, to look at that, and the discussions with any of the teams where it's not happening. We need to tell those coaches, okay, you've got to stay in the bench or, off the field, if you're not dressed appropriately. So that's who we're anticipating is going to be the one calling that, as opposed to the umpires. Okay, any other comments on that one?
If they're not in uniform, can we find them?
Moving forward, then we'll look at calling for the vote on this one. Okay, the tally on that. Okay, so that was carried as well. Motion 39. Once again, the Softball Canada variation chart regarding the defensive delay, deletion. So OASA will not implement this rule for the defensive delay. So the mover is Mike Crawford, seconded by Matt Allen. Mike?
And this is a housekeeping item. It's to be in line with Softball Canada as a rule, as this rule is called at the U20 and above Canadian Championships. The charge defensive delay rule, Softball Canada Rulebook, page 164, section 10, states that there shall only be one charge defensive delay per half inning.
So this one, the umpires will need to enforce. So this is something that's an on-field thing that the umpires need to look at enforcing. Any questions, comments on this? Not seeing any. We'll look at calling the vote on this. Okay, get the tally. Okay, so, all right, so that one is carried. Motion number 40, still in the Softball Canada variation rule, warming up the pitcher. So we're looking at the exception in U19 to U20, effect 1, removal of the player from the game will not be used. The effect for U9 to U20 will be if any person catching for the pitcher will not wear the mask after a warning is issued to the pitcher, it shall mean removal of the pitcher of the offending team. Movers Patty Fitzgerald Nolan, seconded by Stephen Davis. Patty?
At present time, it is the coach that is ejected.
So something that we've noticed over the years is that, a warning may very well be given, to the coach and may or may not be followed up. And if the coach isn't allowed to be involved in that next game, it doesn't have as much of an impact, on the team, but there still is the safety issue that's there of the pitcher warming up somebody that could get injured, and from an insurance and liability and safety kind of standpoint. So, looking to change that to be the pitcher, being warned that whoever is catching you needs to have a mask on. And if not, then the pitcher, will be the one who's not allowed to play, and is ejected from that next game. So, adding strength or beefing up the penalty as far as who's there, who's getting impacted on that. So, any questions, comments on that one? We're almost home, Only a couple more. Seeing no questions or raised hands I'm aware of, we'll call for the vote on that one. Okay, we've got the tally on that one. Okay, 72% in favor and 24% opposed, 3% abstaining. So this one, we only need 50% plus one. So based on this, we're looking to pass this and this become a new rule moving forward. So this one is carried. Motion number 41. Second last motion. We've done with the rule changes and the Softball Canada stuff and whatever not. So this gets into more of our operational activities as an executive and an association. So this one, the OASA financial review, something we need to look at doing each year is looking at to approve MNP to conduct a review engagement of OASA financial 2021-2022 records. Matt Allen is the mover and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan the seconder. Matt, the rationale, please.
We'll be completing OASA's review engagement for the upcoming.
So any questions on that? Basically, MNP's done it, for the last year or two with us, and we're working with them and we're comfortable. We've had good results with them, so we're certainly pleased with that relationship as we sit here right now. So seeing no questions or comments there, look at calling for the vote on this. Okay, I've got the tally on that. That one is carried. Motion 42. As part of our arrangement with Softball Ontario, there are representatives from each of the member associations that sit on the Softball Ontario board. So this is a motion looking at who will be our representatives to sit at that table and represent us, in the discussions with the various other associations in Softball Ontario activities. So the motion is to approve Dave Northern, Adam Brown, and Patty Fitzgerald Nolan to represent OASA on the Softball Ontario board. Movers Karen Mills and seconded by Matt Allen. Karen?
To confirm OASA's representatives to the Softball Ontario board.
So not anticipating any questions or issues or comments from this one. I'll call for the vote on this one. Okay, we got the tally on that. Somebody, did I miss? No. No, fair enough. So we all volunteered for this, and so that one is carried. So the three of us will be representing us at the Softball Ontario table. That's it as far as the motions and voting goes. I thank everybody for that. Quick kind of synopsis on where things are. Certainly want to thank everybody for 2021's activities and contributions. Whether you be a volunteer, coach, sponsor, the ministry certainly helped us financially. Executives, hosts, and the players and everybody. So we are looking to put on an actual awards banquet to recognize our 2020 and 2021 recipients in the spring of next year. Exactly when and where is still to be determined. So we'll have to work through some more details on that and get things sorted out, but we'll certainly give you as much notice as we can on that going forward. COVID-19, we hope will not, tie us down or restrict us, but lately some of the numbers haven't been favorable. So hopefully those turn around and we move to a point where we're back to, whatever normal is going to look like, with minimal restrictions at all. From a Softball Ontario and OA and PW and slow pitch and OR standpoint, all of the member associations are looking to leverage more shared services, including a centralized membership registration system, for everybody, going forward. That's under development right now, and we're hoping to be able to launch that, in the coming months to capture our information from a registration standpoint. We'll definitely be coming back to everybody with more details on that. Basically, we're going to individual registration for players, and then there will still be, some team and association registrations required, for various things at an insurance level and stuff in that as well. So we haven't got all the details worked out yet, but we're moving in that direction. So stay tuned for more information and updates in that regard. As I briefly mentioned much earlier on in the meeting today, in the middle of October 19th, I think it was, the Ontario government, passed into law the Ontario Not-for-Profit Corporations Act, which will have impact on our bylaws and governance and the way we operate in various things. So we're going to have to look at what our current, bylaws and operations look like as we sit, and compare that to what the new bylaws and requirements are under this Not-for-Profit Act. So we're going to undertake that, in next year. I'm not sure exactly what the final impact of that will be. It'll probably be more administrative on our side than anything else. We're not anticipating anything flowing down, that's going to majorly change anything from a playing standpoint. So it's more administrative side of things. The Ontario Summer Games are scheduled for this July in Mississauga. Get back there, come on now. in July. So that will be our U17A championship taking place there. And then depending on how many teams we have, the others will fall into a B and C that will take place someplace else. The Canada Summer Games happen this summer as well in August. So our Team Ontario will be playing in that in the middle of August. The couple of Canadians that are being hosted in Ontario, CARP is hosting their the U23 Canadians, and Wilmot the U15 Canadians. So we'll be watching and helping out where we can on that, and we'll certainly have strong representation at both of those tournaments locally, and hopefully we get a whole bunch of fans out for those ones as well. We've announced and posted our 2022 tournament dates, and we're in the process of accepting bids. We've approved a couple of of hosts for those tournaments for next year. So if you're interested or thinking about potentially doing something, please go on our website, and there's a bid form for whether it's a qualifier or an Olymp or a provincial, and complete that information and submit it through, as we're going to be having at least monthly meetings with our OASA executive and reviewing applications and host bids, for those as we go along. And OASA was, established in 1923. And so we're coming up and planning on a celebration of us having completed 100 years, in April of 2023. We'll be doing some activities or things or materials and stuff will be coming out during 2022. So stay tuned for all of that kind of information, and watch for that as we go through. Certainly, it was a busy year last year. Hopefully next year gets closer to normal from a previous standpoint, is what we have observed and how we operate. But we'll wait and see. I'm assuming we'll be doing a number of Zoom meetings with different age groups and teams, and the U20s and U23, stuff to figure out some stuff. So watch for a variety of those things as we start to move forward. Certainly want to thank everybody that has helped out with running stuff and sorting things out for today. Jonathan Baker has been our technical support from the Softball Ontario side here and helping things, and Patty Nolan and myself physically here, but certainly everybody that's contributed to all of the programs and stuff all year long. Want to make sure to thank and recognize all of your input, and certainly, and if anybody has any questions or comments or follow up and stuff on that, by all means, get in touch with somebody on the executive, and we'll get whatever topic it is raised and discussed, and get some feedback to you, or incorporate whatever it is you're involved in. So, a note in the chat section there from Jamie Simpson, from someone that once sat around the table with the OASA members. I want to thank all of you for the time, energy, and effort you put into each and every day to provide a game for all of us to play. And thanks, Jamie. Certainly, everybody that's here on this call is heavily involved, going forward from stuff, being involved in that. Scott Tuttle, I'm assuming that Scott Tuttle would like to thank everyone on the executive, coaches, and families. Keep this great game going. It's been tough for sure the last 2 years, and look forward to the 100th anniversary. Thanks for having me as the honorary president for the last 2 years. It's been an honor and a pleasure. See you around the ballpark next summer. Scott Tuttle. Question on any information on the high performance pitching and catcher program for this year. We're in the process of finalizing, players that are going to be involved in that, as well as the instructors for that. So we're figuring some things out, and there'll be some stuff coming out within the next 30 to 60 days on that, looking to kickstart some stuff in the new year on that. So we'll keep you updated, and there'll be some updates on our website and through social media regarding some of that stuff as well. Any other specific questions from anybody? If not, I want to, say, once again, thank everybody for participating. This year's AGM was a lot longer than last year's. We had a lot more motions. If we'd known the not-for-profit act, was going to be coming, it may have changed some of our stuff that we made changes this year, and we may have just waited and done some next year, but it is what it is. And so we'd already, gone down the path of making a variety of those things. Our AGM for next year may or may not be in November. We need to figure out some things, because obviously if it doesn't work for us to be able to get, our financials together and some other things figured out in time to be able to share that with our members, that puts a crimp in some of the things in that. So that'll be something we'll have to discuss and figure out as we start to go through the year on whether that looks at changing when in the year we actually have our AGM. You know, it may very well move to, you know, a spring AGM, you know, if we need to do that based on when our fiscal year ends and when we need to have some financials together and whatever and that. So stay tuned on that one as well. So with that, I will look at thanking everybody once again, and we'll look at talking to you in the near term. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a good day. Sometimes we get more questions.